Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Wow, it is a definite chilly fall evening in upstate New York. I went outside a little while ago, and all I could think about was Halloween. Just the smells of fall and the changing of leaves and the rustling of leaves in the wind. So, in celebration of Halloween coming, I've got some terrifying cryptid encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page to help raise some money for urbex, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting equipment. So far, I have an EVP recorder, an SLS cam, and a couple of trail cams. I'm right now working on getting some thermal imaging cams. If that's anything that you're interested in helping with, that link is also in the description below. Now I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these terrifying cryptid encounters. Shall we? Tonight's first terrifying cryptid encounter. Okay, so I have no idea what we saw exactly that night. I've searched everywhere for sightings or even myths around the area we saw, and I've found nothing. If anyone has an idea of what we've seen, or even if anyone else has seen something, please let us know. My husband and I think it could have been a Wendigo, but I don't know. I haven't heard anyone else say they've seen anything like it in the Red River Gorge. I guess I want help figuring out what we saw and what to do. After the night I'm about ready to describe to you, but I think we've had some close encounters with it since. My friends and I go camping a lot, and my favorite place is Red River Gorge, Kentucky. We go there often, and I've been there since I was an infant. I'm now 28, married with my own child, and I still love to go. It's the closest place to go where I live, where I can see the Milky Way pretty much every night. It's perfect for stargazing, and I've seen shooting stars every clear night I've been there. When we go without our kid, we'll go on a night hike to a good lookout point and stargaze for hours. Our first experience night hiking, we would go to the trails we knew well and we would use frequently during the day. Ones with log fences and gazebo resting places. The most used trail is a trail with a natural bridge state park that leads up to the natural bridge. This trail is around 2 miles uphill depending on your starting point. I've hiked this trail every summer of my life and could do it blindfolded. It has wooden stepped, carved rock steps, log handrails, multiple sitting points under roofs, trash cans, but after reaching the main trailhead it has no lights at all. It's used often, and while it is an uphill, the difficulty is low. As long as you have a good grip on your shoes and water, you'll be fine. My friends have done it with me multiple times and are confident in it as well. Hiking this trail at night is not allowed, but it's the woods, and I've never really been one to care about closing times for literally the outside. When we used this main trail to hike to the top, we would park in a lot designated for the pool in Hoedown Island. You walk across the road that leads to the pool and you're at the first trail marker. You go up gravel for a while and pass the Natural Bridge State Park Lodge. There's a waterfall and some lights, so it's best that you go fast and watch out for rangers that'll tell you to leave. Then you walk across another road and there's this mini shelter to sit in and a small rock wall to rest your legs. Then it's the trail to the top. The night was weird to begin with. As soon as we started the hike, the clouds took over and it appeared we'd be walking for nothing to even stargaze at. But we went anyway, just in case it cleared up by the time we got up there. In the beginning, it was just your normal paranoia that kept us stressing, and it was quiet, it seemed. You know you've reached the bottom of the bridge when you see a giant wall of limestone. During this time, there's a gazebo that sets to the right of this wall, and the trail continued and followed to the next wall, where you come to this fairly steep part of the trail, and the gazebo is welcome. My husband, my best friend at the time, and I all sat at the gazebo steps. The bench is under the roof and even darker than the rest of the outside, so we just stayed on the steps, facing to where you were looking down the trail that follows the limestone wall. We each have a bright LED headlamp and a handheld flashlight. We don't usually look at each other when we're hiking at night because the lights are so bright. We sit in a line like the Lord's Supper and walk in a line or staggered so we don't blind ourselves. It is after hours at this point. No gondola rides has gone on for hours, and the rangers have already done their sweep and left right before we got out of the car and headed up. We left no time between them, making sure the trail and the top were clear for us to start our hike up. The gondola takes you up to the top, but there are workers that stay and do counts and only leave after it's clear. I guess I have to make these points because that's what I was thinking when what seemed out of nowhere, a girl with a headlamp begins walking down the trail we were looking out at. She is in a sundress and flip-flops. This hike is uphill, and while it's fairly easy hike, it is not easy with no water or real shoes. She'd have to hike up and down at this point with no food or water. Her light was bright, and when she reached where the trail turns from in front of the gazebo to down where we came from, she had stopped. She just stood there, straight on, like how a human is presented in an anatomically drawing. She was looking directly at us all sitting there, and her light made me bring my hand up to shield my eyes. She didn't turn away from our lights at all, or even seemed bothered. She had 6 LED lights aimed directly at her face. I said hello. She said, kind of with a pause between every word, something like, "Hello, how are you?" I said something like, "Good, how are you?" And she took even longer pauses. "Oh, I'm fine." She then just stood there, still, with her hands to her side, facing and staring at us. Her light made it impossible to really see her face, and it was so bright I had my hand up the entire time until she just turned and walked slowly down the trail part we had just came up. She got to the part where the trail turned, and we saw her light just stay in that one spot for a minute until she turned and the light faded out of sight. We wait for a while before we continue up. I'm making comments about how weird that was, and everyone else just made it out like I was being afraid, but no one ever came after her. She had done this hike alone at night and somehow without being found by rangers. We got up after a bit and started back to the top. It felt like it took much longer than it ever had done in the past, but we made it to the top. There's stone steps named Fat Man Squeeze that you get to when you're at the top of the bridge, and you can walk across it. Going up and being on top, you could hear twigs snapping, almost alternating from left then right. We decide to lie down and try to stargaze, but the clouds are even thicker now and it's miserably hot. We could hear voices at times, and my husband kept checking for people that we had heard, but he didn't see anybody. We saw a light flash, never anyone attached to it though. And then we heard this bird call. It wasn't like a real bird noise at all. It sounded like a person making bird calls, like rhythmically and not natural. I was convinced that we weren't alone and hadn't been alone, but I'm also easily spooked. I asked to leave as soon as they were ready to, and they were ready to right when we were there, and that scared me, that they were just as afraid as me at this point. We began going down the way we came, and it felt like it was taking forever. We were going steady and quick, and it was downhill, but we weren't making any ground, it seemed. It's hard to explain, but it was so weird that at the point I even said out loud, "This feels much longer than normal," and they agreed with me. I kept looking behind me with my flashlight, and my husband kept looking out to the sides, and my friend kept hers mostly forward. I keep feeling like we're being watched and couldn't figure out what footsteps were ours or if they were all ours that I heard. I would turn in the direction of any noise but not see anything. When my husband was walking, he kept saying he was catching eyes in his flashlight. Usually you can catch raccoon eyes spying on you or some animal like that. He was afraid, maybe a bear or a big dog or something. And he never got his lights on whatever eyes they were long enough to see the animal's size or shape. Now we're hiking down a semi-flattish area compared to the downhill hike we had been doing. The log fence or handrail or whatever it's called is on our right side. We're in a row walking within reaching distance of this barrier. And my husband just stops walking altogether and says, "What's that?" But the question is more like an alert, and I move my hand lamp in the direction and don't see anything at first. Then both of his lights catch a shape, and then my headlamp catches it, and I move my hand lamp to the center and catch it while my friend simultaneously finds it in her lights as well. All 6 lights shine onto and kind of reflect off this light gray creature. It's bent in a crouching position, kneeling on its right leg, and starts turning towards us. It starts to slowly stand, and my mind is racing. It looks human, but it's too big. People mistake human shapes for what's actually bears in the woods often, but this is too skinny. It's thin and big and almost white. It's so light gray, and its skin resembles dolphin skin. There's a shine to it, and our lights get reflected a little when they're on it. It gradually comes to a full standing position in front of us. Its head is long, and its eyes are in a human position on its face in front, and not on the side like animals, but I couldn't see any other facial features. Just big, almost empty holes or pits that were its eyes. It looked directly at us and our lights. The way it stood was intimidating, almost like when a snake rises up and flex their neck all crazy to show prey that they're stronger and smarter. It was like it was stepping up for a fight, from crouching, then turning, then standing front on in front of us. The arms hung down low, and the hands seemed too long. Its hands had to be by its knees, and I'd guess it stood 9 feet or so, and not that far in front of us. No hair at all, and its head was large. I couldn't process what I was looking at and was frozen. Then I just felt my husband hitting me on my back, yelling, "Run! Run!" I start to understand that we have to get away from this thing, and it pivots and runs to the right, going backwards on the trail so it could get around the barrier and onto the trail behind us. We take off running the rest of the way down the trail, knowing that this thing just took off much faster than us, and after it had crossed from behind the barrier, it would be gaining on us quick. We didn't talk at all because when we tried, it almost felt like we were going to get caught. We kept running as we came down the trail, but some areas were just too steep. It never felt like we were ever out of sight of this creature. As we made it to the trail beginning with the gravel, we could hear something to the side crashing down through the forest. We ran until we got to the car and then drove as fast as we could. And as soon as we got to the main road, the stars were out. It had just cleared up. When the thing looked at us, I knew it was smarter and faster than us. I knew that if we hadn't had seen it, that it could have easily taken one of us and gotten away. I think the only reason it hesitated was because so many of us saw it at once and we had stayed together. When we finally made it back to where we were staying, all of us took out our phones and wrote a little note for what we saw and what happened. We hadn't spoke about it until after we looked at each other's phones, and the stories were the same. Without a doubt, we had all seen the same thing for real. Our second encounter is a Dogman encounter, coming to us from Michigan, 2011, from Rodney. A few years ago, after midnight, I was on my way home on I-75, a couple hundred yards south of Bay Road Overpass, in Mackinac County. I noticed something move near the highway reflectors. Thinking it was just a deer, I turned on my brights and watched for it to cross the road. As I approached it, I noticed that what I thought was the reflectors on the highway was orange, and then it blinked on and off like eyes. Thinking, what the heck is that? I sped up to get closer. As I got closer, I could see the silhouette of an animal. It was sitting like a dog. Its head was even with the reflectors. It stood on all fours and turned and walked down into the ditch and then up the little incline, then turned and looked at my truck. It turned back to the highway, walked on all fours to the shoulder of the blacktop, looked at the truck again with those orange eyes. Those eyes were huge. Then it jumped to within a foot or two of the center line, and the next jump it landed on the grass across the road. I was probably like 100 feet from it. This animal was rippling in muscles. It looked like it weighed 500 pounds or more. Its hair, which covered its body, looked short, and its head was huge with hardly no neck. After I passed where it crossed, I hit the brakes, as there were no cars on the highway, and started to back up. As I got close to the spot where it had crossed, I suddenly felt fear and thought, what the hell am I doing? I put the truck back in drive and began to leave. As I was rolling up the window, I glanced back and noticed a light, bright like a floodlight, ascending into the sky at a high rate of speed. It was at that angle of about 1 o'clock, and in just a few seconds it was out of sight. Something else that was strange was there were no light rays trailing it. Our third and final encounter is just a little brief Dogman encounter. Me and my friend Ari were in the woods by Traverse City Christian School. Then, out of the corner of our eyes, we saw something like Bigfoot. We thought it was the Dogman, so we ran back to our cross-country group. Alright, guys, so I don't know about you, but I was reading that first encounter in a very bright room, my studio, with the door closed. And I was getting cold chills right up my spine when I was narrating this encounter. That really freaked me out. First, just, I love the woods. I love the woods at night. But you're with your friends and loved one, and all of a sudden this 9-foot creature is in front of you. Now, mind you, this girl had just passed. I mean, there was probably like a half an hour, difference. They crossed paths, went to the top, hung out for a few. They all got kind of sketched out and booted foot out of there. So they get to this point, and there's this creature. What happened to the girl? Was the girl the creature? So then this creature just takes off running around a barrier to get to you faster. That's just so goddamn sketchy, man. Like, don't chase me through the woods, you frickin' freak. So anyway, first year in Kentucky, like I said, no one's an expert. I just go by things that, it's definitely not a Wendigo. They're northern Canadian, northern New York area, First Nation lore. Fleshgait. I'm going to refer to these creatures that people want to call skinwalkers that are not on Navajo land Fleshgaits from now on. Rake-like creatures. To me, a rake is a creepypasta. It was a creepypasta. It was in the creepy wiki, creepypasta wiki or whatever the hell that thing's called. So we'll just call them Fleshgaits for now. This thing is definitely smart as hell. I mean, it figures out a way of getting around this barrier to get behind you as fast as it can, and then chases you alongside of the woods. And then you get out of there, and then the stars are clear. Just real weird, really weird. The thing, I want to know what happened to the girl. Was the girl the creature? Did the creature eat the girl? What the hell? God. So then, the second encounter, the Dogman encounter, I know all of you are going to be like, oh, we heard that story years ago. Yeah, you did. I guarantee you did. But you didn't hear it with that much detail, I can guarantee that. Because that was directly from the person who it happened to. Those were his exact words. That was his exact statements. The interesting thing is that the encounter that we've all heard, and I've heard the same encounter prior to this, you don't hear about the light. There's a couple other encounters that talk about the lights shooting up into the sky after seeing this Dogman, but this one, and I backchecked, I did, and it's not part of it. It usually just says this creature was the size of the reflectors on all fours, blinked, and then I drove by it and I was gone. I want to know, like, there's so many theories, the Dogman, a alien, time traveler, who knows? I want to know. Just like everybody else does. Who doesn't want to know? Except people that don't want to know. And they're retards. The last encounter, very short, but just imagine you're with your cross-country, running team, and you stop real quick to get your breath or talk to your friend or whatever, and out of the corner of your eye, you see this big hairy creature. You're in Michigan, so it's either a Bigfoot or a Dogman. Just, what are you going to do? You're going to run back to your friends and where you're safe. Hopefully it gets one of them instead of you. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters as much as I did. The first encounter freaked me out so bad just narrating it in a lit room. I'm going to listen to it. I never listen to my narrations, by the way. I can't hear my voice. It's terrible. But I'm going to listen to that encounter when I go to bed in my bedroom with headphones on and see if it freaks me out even more than when I read it in the light. Because I literally kept looking over my shoulder, every creak, every noise I heard. I just heard a little creak and I just flinched and looked back. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters. I want to thank everybody for all of your support. You guys are awesome. I say it all the time, thank you, and I get, don't thank us. No, I have to thank you because you guys are the ones that keep me going. There's days that I'll sit and I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to narrate. I'm tired. And then I look and I check my studio, the YouTube studio where I get my analytics and stuff. And I I get surprised. I'm like, oh my God, I have this many encounters. To be honest, I was so tired that I wasn't going to narrate tonight. And I said, if I have 6,681 subscribers, I'm going to do a story. There was 6,684. I was like, oh, you're doing a story tonight. And I love it because you guys keep me going and I keep you going with stories. So it's like this symbiotic relationship. We're kind of like Venom. Anyway, guys, have a great night and thanks for everything. Farewell.